going to be teaching you some of the most common ways your MSR Whisper light can break and what to do about it.
The first thing that we're going to be taking a look at here is the standard repair kit that comes with the Whisper Light stove. Everything there is included except for the paper clip. Sometimes a safety pin is used as well. Those were added by the outdoor program because they're pretty helpful for a few of the maneuvers. If you need some more replacement parts or some other handy tools, you can purchase a Expedition repair kit, which has got a lot of other things that's a little bigger, and the OP has a few of those in the rental shop. Before we get started here, I just want to add that all the things that we're going to be doing in this video are summarized in the Whisper Light user manual, as well as there's a diagram of the stove. Now, the first step in fixing your stove is figuring out what the actual issue is. Now, there's a lot of different things that could be going wrong with your stove, but this video is going to cover the most common ones and things that can be fixed in the backcountry. We're going to start with your stove burning inconsistently. Now, the most common reason for inconsistent burning from your Whisper Light is the carbon buildup within the jet. After consistently burning your stove for a while, soot left by the combustion of your fuel can clog the region of the Whisper Light where the fuel needs to be flowing upwards in order for you to have a consistent flame. Now, the first step in unclogging your jet is going to be simply unscrewing the priming cup. This is just a simple screwing motion that should only take a few seconds. Along with that should come the priming wick. Once you've done that, you're going to start working on getting the generator tube out from the stove. This is just a simple push. You're going to push down right there, it pops out. This is going to come free from the stove, except for the fact that it'll be hanging onto the legs. So now we're taking a closer look at the jet itself. This can be removed by just simply unscrewing like that. Sometimes you might need the wrench to look at it. Now here's a better look at the shaking needle and the jet. As you can see, the jet's got a tiny little hole on top of it. This is where the fuel comes through, mixes with air, and then begins to combust up top. It's a very small hole, and the carbon buildup from burning your fuel can clog it fairly simply. The shaker needle sits below the jet, and as your stove moves around, attempts to unclog the jet by just poking up through the hole. If you're at the stage where you're manually taking apart your stove, that's because the shaker pin is somewhat useless. It's clogged too much. Your goal is to end up using the shaking needle and any other tool you can use to clear the jet so that fuel can flow through it again. As you begin to reassemble the Whisper Light, make sure that the needle goes below the jet with the needle pointing up through the hole, and then you just need to simply rescrew it and re-put your stove together like we did in the first step. Another thing that could be inhibiting a constant flame is a dirty fuel line, which could be blocking fuel from reaching your stove efficiently. So what we're going to do is remove it and clean it before inserting it again. So the first step in this is we're going to use the nice little tool that MSR provides us. We're going to use one of the smallest holes to fit over the fuel line, kind of twist it a little bit, put it at a nice angle to get a little friction. You're going to pull it on out. Now this usually requires a fair amount of pressure and effort, but it shouldn't feel like you are about to break the stove. Now that it's out, we're going to begin cleaning it by just simply wiping it with a clean cloth or rag. Wipe it up and down a bit, try to get some of the soot and any debris that could be on your fuel line off. Once you've done that, you're going to simply reinsert the fuel line back into its housing with the same end that you pulled out. All you're going to do is just kind of stroke it in. Eventually you will get to a point where you're not going to be able to put it in anymore with your fingers, but it is too long. So you're going to want to reuse the tool, kind of find the smallest hole, which the fuel line should not fit over, use it as a boundary to just kind of push it in its last little bit until you get the desired length that will fit into your fuel bottle. So when we're looking at issues with pumping up your bottle and creating pressure, there's really one region that we're going to want to look at, and that's the cylinder that houses the plunger along with the plunge cup on top of the plunger. Now, if the cylinder is dirty with debris or if the plunge cup is dry and cracked, you're not going to be able to create the airtight seal that you're going to need to push air down into your bottle and create pressure. This is the first area that we're going to be using the lubricant MSR has provided us in the repair kit. So the first step in removing the plunger is just going to be pull it out until you see the line that MSR has marked for removal of the plunger. Here's a closer image of it, and on the handle, MSR has provided nice little steps for removing the plunger. So what we're going to do is pull it out to the line, give it a twist, and pull it on out. It should come out fairly easy, and if you're meeting a significant amount of resistance, you might want to reevaluate to make sure you're at the line. So while we're in here, we're going to take a look at another area of the pump that can cause issues while creating pressure. Now that is the checking valve. So you're going to use the tool, just kind of unscrew it like that. It's just one little motion, and the whole check valve should come up. It consists of the little red plastic, a spring, and some sort of stopper at the tip. So now that we've removed both pieces, we're just going to take a look at how we can look at fixing and repairing them so that we can get our pump back in motion. Now, starting with the plunger and the plunger cup, we can just add a little bit of lubricant to kind of bring some of the elasticity back into the plunger cup. This will help create the airtight seal that we're looking for. If the plunge cup is significantly damaged and cracked, you're going to want to look for a replacement in the Expedition replacement kit. Regarding the checking valve, if that is significantly damaged and you think that that is causing the pressure issues, you're going to also want to just grab a new one of those from the replacement kit. As we begin to look at putting the pump back together, it's as simple as just having the checking valve put back in, using the tool to screw it back in place. Then, as we look at the pump, which is a little trickier, we're going to want to push it on in. Make sure that the studs on the side of the pump are aligning with the holes on the pump. Push it in and give it a nice twist, and then it should be back in place. So as we begin to look at issues with the stove leaking, a lot of times that can happen from the pump. So we're going to start by fixing this issue with removing the pump like we did in the last video. Then we're going to use the tool to try to remove this tiny little red piece of plastic. Now there's two little slots on the piece that you can't see very well. And you're going to try to just use the tool to turn it so that it can come free. Then what we're going to do from there is make a nice little hook from the paper clip. Now if you have a safety pin, it kind of already is made. But once you do that, you're going to reach into the hole and pull out this tiny little ring called the O-ring. Now this helps to create a tight junction between two parts of your stove. The issue is that it can become dry and crack. If it's dry but intact, you're going to want to use a little bit of lubricant. Just make it a little more elastic by adding a bit, moving it around, and then pushing it back into the hole. If it is cracked and damaged, you might want to just use a replacement. Replacements for O-rings come standard within the MSR without the Expedition kit. Use your little tool to push it back into the hole, making sure that it's nice and flat on its little ledge, which is in the hole. You're going to reinsert the piece of plastic, use the tool to spin it, and reinsert the pump. Now we're going to be looking at one more spot that you might find leaking, and that's the control valve assembly. You're first going to use the tool to loosen up the outer shelling on the assembly. Eventually you'll get it to a point where you can loosen it with your fingers. Now the unscrewing process is a little confusing, for you have to unscrew both the plastic tab and the metal shelling. Once you've gotten both completely unscrewed, you'll be able to pull it out. Here you're going to find another O-ring style piece of plastic. This is again helped to create a tight seal on a junction. If it's cracked and dry, you can use a little lubricant to try to revitalize it. However, if it's too damaged, you can always replace it with the part from the Expedition repair kit. When you're finished repairing the control assembly valve, you can simply start putting it back in and screw it back in, remembering to screw both the housing and the tab for a tight seal. Now you know some of the most common ways your stove can break and some of the best ways to fix it. When thinking about a broken stove, remember to think of this flow chart. Is your stove burning inconsistently, creating issues with pressure, or leaking? Think of attempting to clear the jet by disassembling the stove if your stove is burning inconsistently. If you're having issues with pressure or leaking, you want to take a look at your pump.